So, before I embarrass myself on stream, do you guys have a new engine that you're using for this one? Good. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Shacknews' E3 live stream. I'm here with Donovan, and we have Jeff with us on the couch to talk about his game, State of Decay 2.
How's it going?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm tired, but I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing?
I'm also tired, but doing well.
Yeah,
we made it to the third day.
It's Thursday. Yep, it's Thursday of E3, so we're all feeling it. But you know, we just got to power it through one more day. So you brought your game with us. Can you, for people who've played the first State of Decay, or for people who haven't, like, what is State of Decay 2?
Right. Well, State of Decay 2 is, obviously sequel to State of Decay.
Right.
The State of Decay was kind of a different view in the zombie genre game, right? There's lots of fantastic zombie games out there, but we didn't feel any of them had really captured that magic of the survival fantasy, right? For us, it wasn't about shooting zombies, even though that's always fun.
Right.
But it was more about giving you the tools to put your survival plan into effect. We all believe, I suspect both of you guys feel like if the apocalypse broke out tomorrow, you'd probably be one of the few survivors.
Oh yeah, I got a plan in the back of my head.
We have a plan, we're smarter, we're a little bit shrewder, right? We're gonna survive. And we wanted to make a game that let you actually test that. Is your judgment good? Do you have the patience? Do you have the planning skills? Right. Can you make the proper trade-offs? So State of Decay, released in 2013, was kind of our first swing at that. Right. Was super successful, much to our joy and relief. And now we have the great privilege to be able to do a full sequel to it. Fantastic. So what we wanted to do with the sequel was, let's take a look at what worked well. Definitely there were some things that didn't work well. Let's make sure we acknowledge those and move them out. And then let's judiciously innovate in a few areas to really kind of push the experience further and deepen that survival fantasy. So State of Decay 2 is bigger, badder, bolder. And in addition to kind of deepening the simulation systems and character systems, the real most noticeable feature is going to be the addition of the #1 fan-requested feature, which is co-op multiplayer. Yes.
Let's just jump right into that.
Okay.
So because in survival horror or survival games, you always want to be with someone, trying to do your best to survive. So how is multiplayer going to work in your game?
Right. Well, our fans of the game, from the moment they started playing it, were saying this game needs multiplayer, this game needs multiplayer. And we knew it, right? In our grand strategy, the original game was supposed to be multiplayer, but we were a pretty small team, kind of punching a little bit above our weight, and we just didn't have time to do it. But now we get to do it, and we get to do it right. So we've been very thoughtful about how it should work. And one of the things about State of Decay is that it's not a game of misery and doom, right? It's not a game of humans hating humans. There's a fundamental theme of hope that we always follow in this game, and the way that manifests is it is profoundly a game of humans versus zombies. And so we didn't want to create a multiplayer experience that was everybody running out into an open world with guns and shooting each other. Right. Honestly, that's been done and been done well. Right. And I certainly would not say that cannot be fun, right? Because it can be. But we didn't feel like that was the right way to do multiplayer in State of Decay. And our fans were specifically asking for co-op multiplayer. They wanted to play with their friends. Right. So that's what we've done. You and up to 3 of your friends can play together. It is very seamless, drop in, drop out at any time. You don't have to pre-construct a community where you're both owners or something like that. I can invite you to come play in my game. You can invite me to come play in your game. Okay, good. The game will reward you for playing, for helping somebody else out. But one of the coolest things to me is what we call the flare system, which is at any time you're playing the game and you get in over your head a little bit, you can pull out a flare gun, shoot it up in the air, and that sends out a beacon to other players of the game who have registered to be a volunteer. If they get that beacon that someone needs help, they can just jump right into your game and help you out. I like that. Yeah, that's good. It's very cool. Cool.
Awesome.
So could you tell us something about customization in State of Decay 2, like how maybe you change your character's look, their appearance, their clothing, their weapons?
Right. So in the original game, we had a couple hundred traits that every survivor you found would have, and those traits would influence their skills, and also to some degree how they interacted with your overall community. We've really deepened that substantially in State of Decay 2. So rather than a couple hundred, we have well over 1,000 different traits. They have a much more profound impact on character skills and a much more profound impact on kind of the overall community chemistry and the way that we model things like morale and the efficiency of labor and construction in the game. So you don't go in and kind of customize those starting traits. These are real people that you find, and they come with both good and bad traits. And the way you blend those, you do have great control over who is in your community and how they work together, and you have a great amount of control over how those traits influence their RPG-based skills as they progress. So you can shape and guide them, and then you can choose how they blend together as a community. But you don't go in on an individual character-by-character basis and change those starting traits or their appearance. They come to you as a package.
Nice.
Cool. So with the first State of Decay, you guys were kind of a small team kind of working to create this fantastic game. Very fantastic game. Don't want to discredit it. But now, State of Decay 2, you've got more money behind you. You got a bigger map. You got a new engine. What did you... how did you look at the first game and go like, okay, we want to fix this, we want to change that, but this was good and we want to bring it over to here? So how was the development process with that?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's fair to acknowledge that, the first game was an Xbox Live Arcade game.
Yep.
It was a small, passionate team, and I think I used the phrase earlier, we were punching a little bit above our weight, right?
Okay, yeah.
It was a very ambitious game for a team of our size. We really had a clear vision for what we wanted to try to accomplish, this wholly simulated world where your choices and the consequences of those choices felt real and natural. It wasn't, you never feel like the game is just kind of arbitrarily deciding your fate.
Right.
And that's important if you're going to make a survival simulation like this, but it's devilishly complex.
Yeah.
The State of Decay was by far the largest and I think one of the more successful Xbox Live Arcade games ever released, certainly the most ambitious. But it had some rough edges.
Right, fair.
And one of the first things that we want to do in the sequel, as you point out, it is a bigger budget, more well supported by our publisher. We want to smooth those rough edges, deliver a more polished experience.
Okay, cool.
So that certainly, there are also areas where some of the risks we took from a design standpoint paid off. Like, we were very worried about permadeath and whether players would understand why we went that route, and it turns out they very much did.
Yes.
But there were other things that we did that didn't work out so well, like the offline progression. In the original game, when you're not playing, we're kind of simulating time passing, and when you come back to the game, both good and bad things will have happened, and it kind of breaks that contract we have of, if anything bad happens to you, you should be able to look back and say, if only I'd done X differently, right?
This was my fault because of X, Y, Z.
But when things happen because you're offline, that's not really living up to that contract. So that system we completely did away with. There is no offline progression in the second. And from there, it's just a question of what are the things that really worked well, and let's deepen and refine those systems. So, like I said, there was definitely an element of what are we going to double down on, what are we going to get rid of completely, and then where are we going to choose to push it forward a little bit. And where we've chosen to push forward, obviously, the multiplayer aspects of it, but also the way the story works is much more tightly integrated into the overall simulation, so you feel like what you actually do as a player has more of an impact on how that story unfolds.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
It seems like we're kind of like in a boom again of open world games. Like we had Zelda, we have PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds. Like we're getting back to that more open world type gameplay. Why do you think people like open world games so much?
Well, I think the clear or kind of the most obvious reason is just that sense of freedom. Right. True. It is. You want to believe you can go anywhere and do anything. I think that where open worlds can get into a little bit of trouble is if there's not enough structure to what's going on. If you get lost, yes, I can go anywhere and do anything, but does it have any meaning? True. Why do I really care, right?
Fair.
And so I think finding that blend of giving you that profound sense of freedom that an open world brings to the table, but also making sure that there's enough structure and kind of linear aspects of it that you care and you engage with the world, there's context. That's the alchemy that you have to get just right.
Right.
And I think, there are some fantastic open world games out there that really get it right. I think the reason that there was the kind of the big boom of that back in the early 2000s, and then it fell off for a little while, and now it's coming back, is because a lot of some of those early attempts, I think, lacked a little bit of that structure.
Okay.
And now, you know, everyone's figured it out.
Right.
And,
true.
you know, certainly Breath of the Wild has it figured out.
Oh yes, it does.
Yeah.
Oh yes, it does.
So could you tell us something about maybe like the leveling up system, or maybe how ranking or leaderboards would work if they're in the game?
Yeah, the ranking of what?
Ranking or like leaderboard systems between people and their friends?
I can't really speak to leaderboards, but I can tell you how the characters progress.
Okay.
You know, there's a core set of what we call survival skills. These are very RPG type of skills, like cardio, wits, shooting, and stealth, I believe. And those, every survivor you find is going to have those. And their background can influence those. If you have somebody who is a martial arts instructor, you can expect that their cardio will be higher, and probably the maximum cardio they can ever have will be higher. One of the characters in the behind closed doors demos that we're showing here was a former fry cook.
Okay.
And so her cardio is actually very low, and it's capped at only 2. Right?
Okay, geez,
so,
yeah.
you know, the implication being that, you know, maybe she's eating too many fried foods, but as you play the game and exercise those skills, you'll level up in them. And when you get to the maximum that you can, if you can get it all the way to the maximum, sometimes you can specialize, especially in things like combat ability. And then it'll open up a whole new realm of you know, sword play or blunt weapon fighting or sharpshooting, things like that. Then there are special skills that only some characters have, like for example, gardening or mechanical knowledge, auto repair, things like that. And as you build up your base and start exploring the tech tree there, and start building those kind of facilities, when you find those particular survivors, you can use them to staff those facilities and unlock entire new branches of the tech tree. And they can level up in those skills as well, sometimes by actually practicing those skills, sometimes by finding books in a library, sometimes by just other facilities that other survivors might be staffing, influencing the one that they're working on. So there's a lot more of a progression based on the tie-in between the character skills and the base building options that you have.
Okay, cool. Now, I heard you guys are using a new engine for State of Decay 2. How has that helped you guys create the game that you want to create?
Yeah, so the original game was on CryEngine 3. We switched to Unreal 4 for this one.
Yeah, nice.
We do get a pretty substantial right out of the box kind of graphical boost with that. The real win for UE4 for us is it has some pretty amazing prototyping tools. And so we're able to go in and build systems more quickly and iterate on them before we bake them out permanently into code. We do still have to do quite a bit of work to make the game stream. It is an open world game. You know, you see some gorgeous Unreal 4 based games that are kind of level-based games, and we're always a little bit jealous of the fact that they have just complete control over the environment and time of day and everything else. Because we're real time of day, because we are an open world and we have to kind of stream the world in, we still have to do quite a bit of engineering work on that. But overall, you know, it is a very well-supported engine. You know, Epic is very responsive to any needs we have, and we think it's a good foundation for the future of the franchise. Awesome,
awesome. Now, since your game is about, what, 3 times bigger than the first one, your map size?
So the map, there's 3 maps right now that are the size of the original game.
Okay.
So in terms of the space, yes, about 3 times.
Okay, well, because I was kind of going into like space, like how, because like, you know, with open world sometimes, you know, okay, it's big, but like, there's not much to do. Like it's kind of empty and barren. How are you guys making sure that your world feels vibrant and alive?
Right. Well, so the extra space buys us a couple of things. One, yes, just basically more playable area, but also the ability to have kind of some differentiated biomes to make things that look a little bit, you know, different and give you a kind of a fresh visual experience. But you are right, it doesn't do you any good to just take content and stretch it out more thinly. It's not fun to drive down a road for 10 minutes instead of 2 minutes to get to where you're going. So we have to balance that with being able to fill it in with content. And that's not just a question of buildings and structures, it's also the things that you can do in those buildings and structures. And so if you have 30 different mission types, for example. And even if you build out a much larger world, if you still have 30 different mission types, it's not going to feel like it's that much larger.
Right.
So expanding the size of the world also means expanding the depth of the content and the density of the content. What is there to do? How many things can you do? How many different experiences can you have?
Okay.
And so we have to do a deepening of all of those systems at the same time to make it feel like it's still the same kind of rich experience.
Cool. Awesome.
So I know you said that like one of the core like elements of this game is humans versus zombies, but I wanted to ask, will there be any type of like PvP mode or player versus player dynamic to the game?
So not direct PvP. I would describe it as PvEVP.
Okay.
So in multiplayer, you can't shoot each other. There's no friendly fire.
All right.
If you wanted to, you could certainly grief each other. I could do something like come into your game loaded up with fireworks, and then throw off a couple of ladyfingers and cherry bombs in front of your base just to pull in the zombies in the area. And then you could boot me out of your game if you wanted. But there are other human enclaves in the world. You will meet other survivors who have already established bases and are out there living, and you could have positive relationships with them, or you could have negative relationships with them. And if those relationships become too negative, it could definitely turn violent. But as far as player-controlled players, you're not going to be coming into the game and shooting each other. It's more trying to model the conflicts and stress of the apocalypse than it is giving you the ability to go shoot people.
Okay, and you spoke about bases briefly there. Could you tell us a little bit more about how the bases work in this game when playing online with other players?
Yeah, so the base is the home for all your survivors. It's the home for your community. It does have lots of options for upgrading and expanding the base. Compared to the original game, there are more kind of finely detailed choices you can make about what you're going to build and where, and there's a lot more interplay between those facilities that you build and the skills and traits that your characters are bringing to the table. So those two things combined really let you put a very specific strategy into place. The base is also where the simulation comes home, and so you'll be worried about morale, and you'll have a very clear list of everything impacting morale. You might have a character that snores, and that's going to have a little bit of a detrimental impact on morale. Every time somebody dies, it has a temporary impact on morale. You might have somebody come in with some unique knowledge, like if you find that auto mechanic you've been looking for forever, and now you can keep your very precious cars in better shape, everybody's going to be pretty happy about that. Right. If you have too many mouths to feed and you're not supplying enough food, people get grumpy, right? And we show you that very clearly and let that model out. The base is also where you can build things like weapon shops and the ability to craft Molotov cocktails and homemade grenades and things like that. You have to protect it. It gives you a safe zone around the area you're in, and you extend that influence of that safety by upgrading your base. So it's where basically you formulate and execute your strategy for survival, and then you go out into the world to feed it with the resources that you need to build things and keep your people safe.
Nice.
Awesome. Now, of course, my final question has to be like the zombies. Like we haven't really gotten into detail about the zombies. Right. How do they pose a threat to the players in the game? Are they just like out there, and if you run into them, like, oh no, we're gonna have to fight? Or are they just a constant threat that is assailing you and your base?
Right. So it depends on what you do, right? The key with State of Decay is that it is not a scripted game. There are no tripwires. Everything is modeled and simulated, including probably the most important thing, noise. And so everything you do in your base, if you decide to build a farm, that makes a certain amount of noise, just constructing that. The number of people you have determines the amount of noise. If you have a radio room and you're reaching out to your other survivor and people are talking on the radio all the time, that makes noise. The things you do around there, like when you get into a car and close the car door, right? So we give you a great deal of visibility into that, and you can manage it, and you can choose. Are you going to be expedient and reckless, or are you going to be quiet and cautious? It's your choice. But there is an ambient population of zombies in the world. They're always on the move. And whether they're attacking your base all the time or trying to chase you down and eat you is a function of whether they know you're there. Right? And so we have slow ones that just kind of wander the world. We have lurkers that stay down in the grass and that you don't see till the last minute. We have some that are kind of freak types that have their own agendas to pursue. All in all, they're trying to find humans and eat them though.
Okay.
And so that their behavior is modeled rather than us deciding what it's going to be.
Okay, fantastic. And of course, got to ask the last question: when can players get their hands on your game?
Spring 2018.
Fantastic, Jeff. It was so great having you.
Yeah, you bet. I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. And folks, we're going to take a quick break. We just got to shuffle around some people, but we'll be right back with more games. So stay tuned.